In late April, 3 Chinese nationals were killed in Karachi, Pakistan, in a suicide attack claimed by the Balochistan Liberation Army, BLA, known by the Baloch people as slogan Samachar, Balochistan freedom fighters fighting the Pakistani army. As China's economic, political, and security inroads in Pakistan have increased, the BLA has also deliberately attacked Chinese nationals and interests in the country over the past few years. The broad range of organizations that have targeted the Army of Pakistan, Chinese nationals and interests in Pakistan in recent years illustrate growing anxieties about Chinese engagement and human security risks. The deepening Sino-Pakistan relationship serves Beijing's geopolitical goals in the region, ranging from strengthening its historical alignment with Pakistan against India to establishing closer ties to a now Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. On April 26, 3 Chinese nationals and a Pakistani driver were killed in a suicide attack in Karachi, Sindh, which was claimed by the Balochistan Liberation Army, BLA. In an online statement, the BLA announced that the attack deliberately targeted Chinese nationals of the Chinese-funded Confucius Institute on the campus of the University of Karachi, to give a clear message to China that its direct or indirect presence in Balochistan will not be tolerated. The group's statement also claimed that the attack was carried out by the first female suicide bomber, Shari Baloch, belonging to the Majid Brigade of BLA, illustrating the operational role women play in attacks. This recent attack comes after several similar attacks in recent years, in which Chinese nationals and the interests of the Pakistan army have been the target of political violence of the Pakistani army's kill and dump policies in Balochistan. This increase in attacks has occurred in tandem with the Chinese Communist Party's CCP deepening economic and security ties with the Pakistani government. While deteriorating security conditions for Chinese nationals and interests in Pakistan could complicate Beijing's economic aspirations in Pakistan, it could also provide opportunities for deeper Sino-Pakistan security cooperation. The BLA is a Baloch nationalism organization, fighting for the right and self-determination of Balochistan from a radical Islamist country run by the world's top terrorist army of Pakistan. Unlawfully, the United States designated the BLA as a terrorist group. Baloch's people say BLA fights the terrorists of Pakistan and seeks freedom from fundamental Pakistan. The Pakistani government and ultimately seeks to create a sovereign state that would include freedom fighters in Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. Historically, the BLA has primarily targeted Pakistani security forces in the Balochistan province and Karachi in Sindh, a key economic hub close to the province. However, as China's economic, political, and security inroads in Pakistan have increased over the past years, especially since the launch of the $62 billion China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, in 2013, the BLA has also deliberately targeted Chinese nationals and interests in the country. In November 2018, the group targeted the Chinese consulate in Karachi, and last year, a spate of attacks targeted Chinese workers in the city. Experts and analysts have noted that the use of suicide bombings by the BLA, like the attack last week, is a relatively new tactic for the group. Following last year's reports that the BLA may also be seeking to cooperate more closely with other separatist groups in Balochistan. The most recent attack and the BLA's threats to Chinese interests and nationals illustrate an increasingly concerning security situation for both China and Pakistan. several Pakistani militant groups have sought to actively target China's interests and nationals in Pakistan. Last year, the Chinese ambassador to Pakistan, Nong Rong, was nearly a casualty in a bombing targeting a hotel in Quetta carried out by the Pakistani Taliban, also known as the Tehrik-i-Taliban Pakistan (TTP). In June 2017, 2 Chinese nationals were kidnapped in Quetta, Pakistan, and later executed by members of the Islamic State. The broad range of organizations that have targeted Chinese nationals and interests in Pakistan in recent years illustrate the growing anxieties about Chinese engagement and the threat to Chinese interests and nationals. This trend is likely to increase in the coming years as China becomes more economically entrenched in Pakistan and explores deepening security cooperation while contending with the reality that the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year has created a more volatile security situation in the region. Indeed, some of the organizations that have targeted China in Pakistan are believed to partially operate out of Afghanistan, including the BLA and TTP. Pakistan is one of the most enthusiastic partners in China's ambitious foreign policy project, the Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), of which the CPEC is a cornerstone. As in other BRI recipient countries, China's economic inroads have also yielded increased political and security cooperation with the host governments. Chinese influence in BRI recipient countries has also been reflected in the relative silence among these countries when it comes to the CCP's genocide against Uyghur and other monarchies in Xinjiang. A recent report by the Woodrow Wilson Center detailed how Uyghurs and other minorities are most vulnerable to detention or extradition in BRI recipient countries in which China is the largest financial creditor, including Pakistan. In 2020, Beijing and Islamabad signed an agreement to enhance defense cooperation between the Chinese People's Liberation Army (PLA) and Pakistani counterparts. In 2021, the two countries announced deeper counterterrorism cooperation. As security concerns for China in Pakistan will likely continue to grow as violence worsens, the Sino-Pakistan strategic military and security cooperation will continue to evolve in parallel. The deepening Sino-Pakistan relationship serves Beijing's geopolitical goals in the region, strengthening its traditional alignment with Pakistan against India and deepening ties to a now Taliban-controlled Afghanistan. At UN, Pakistan hits back at India, calling it terrorism's principal perpetrator in South Asia. The Baloch Liberation Army (BLA) wants to swap 2 captured Pakistani army personnel JCO Kalimullah and military intelligence officer Muhammad Faisal, with Baloch political prisoners. The BLA had captured the 2 army men in Hanai, Balochistan, on September 25, following which the army sent helicopter gunships, one of which was shot down during the operation. Last week, India Narrative mentioned that the 2 army men were being interrogated by the separatist group. The BLA has said that the interrogation has revealed important information about the operations of the Pakistani army in Balochistan. The BLA further said, after voluntary confessions, both detainees have been formally charged for their crimes by Baloch National Court. The news of the 2 captured soldiers drowned out in the din of the helicopter crash, which the BLA claimed was shot down by a projectile. Experts say that the BLA is becoming lethal in its actions and cheeky in its press statements as it seeks parity with the Pakistani establishment. The BLA considers Balochistan province as a Baloch nation and Pakistan as a colonial power, therefore seeking the status of an equal with the Pakistani army. The BLA has also spotlighted the highly disturbing trend of Pakistan abducting Baloch political people, intellectuals, women and students, tens of thousands of who lie in Pakistani prisons and torture cells. At least 8 of such people were recently shot dead in Ziyarat by the Pakistani army. In a press statement on Wednesday night, the BLA said, "The Baloch Liberation Army's Senior Command Council has approved that in abidance with international conventions and established norms of the war, a process of prisoner swap can be initiated with Pakistani military. BLA is willing to release both detainees, in exchange for the release of Baloch prisoners. However, if Pakistani forces showed any aggression in this regard, then BLA will deliver immediate sentence to both detainees awarded by the Baloch National Court," said Jian Baloch, spokesperson for the Baloch Liberation Army, through a press statement sent over email. Giving details of the modus operandi, the statement says that the BLA's intelligence wing had received information that 2 personnel of the Pakistani forces were traveling in civilian clothes to spy on Baloch freedom fighters. BLA mobilized its Special Force Special Tactical Operations Squad, which successfully intercepted the vehicle the 2 enemy personnel were traveling in. STOS had correctly anticipated that Pakistani military will send its helicopters and special forces to rescue its personnel, says the BLA statement. It adds, around 11 p.m. the Pakistani helicopters arrived in the area and SSG commandos were rappelled from helicopters. BLA's STOS engaged with these enemy troops near Kostani, and their advance was completely halted. During the hour-long battle, the brave BLA warriors also targeted Pakistani military helicopters. At least 1 helicopter was successfully hit with a projectile and gunfire around 11:45 p.m. A few seconds later the enemy copter blew up in the air, killing all 6 on board. These included pilots Major Karam Shahzad, Major Muhammad Munib Afzal, Gunner Naik Jalil and SSG commandos Abdul Wahid, Muhammad Imran and Shoaib. Baloch individuals embedded in the Pakistani army seem to be helping freedom fighters mount attacks on Pakistani security forces. This was noticed when Balochistan freedom fighters had attacked and occupied the camps of the Frontier Corps (FC) in Panjgur and Noshki in February this year, causing major embarrassment to the powerful Pakistani army. Information gathered by India Narrative from various sources had pointed out that Baloch infiltrators in the Pakistani forces had helped the rebels take over the 2 well-fortified camps, killing scores of Pakistani personnel and lowering army morale. Over this year the Baloch conflict is not only taking a serious dimension in Pakistan but also in Iran, where fighting in the Balochistan Sistan province led to the death of the intelligence chief of the province. Baloch conflict no longer a low-level insurgency. For decades the Pakistani establishment has termed the Baloch insurgency as a low-intensity conflict confined mostly to Balochistan, the country's largest province by territory. But that seems to have changed, as a spate of attacks that have taken place this year clearly demonstrate that insurgency has entered into a crucial new phase. Despite Pakistani security forces claiming an intensive crackdown on Baloch freedom fighters, the insurgency's lethality has increased many folds in recent times. As a result, more ferocious attacks, such as suicide bombings, high-profile targeted attacks, and kidnappings of high-ranked army officials are now shaping the course of Pakistan's oldest separatist insurgency. Especially since the start of this year, a remarkable shift in the strategy of Baloch militants has been evident. This year started with a large-scale attack in January on a security checkpoint in Balochistan's Kech region that borders Iran. Less than a week later, another bold attack was carried out by the militants from the Baloch Liberation Army, BLA, suicide wing, the Majid Brigade. In these attacks, militants stormed two security camps in Balochistan's Nushki and Panjgir districts. Most of the time, figures of opponent casualties provided by the military and militants are difficult to independently verify. But the latest string of organized attacks has undoubtedly rocked not only Balochistan but the whole country. In addition to carrying out bold and daring attacks, Baloch insurgents are also using more modern weaponry than Pakistani security forces. In April, this year the BLA's first female suicide bomber, Shari Baloch, a research scholar and school teacher, attacked China's Confucius Institute in the southern port city of Karachi, killing 4, including 3 Chinese nationals. This was a dramatic shift in the strategy as it aimed to expand the Baloch conflict to Pakistan's major urban centers. Also following this strategy, Baloch Nationalist Army, BNA, carried out a bomb blast in a busy Lahore business district, killing 3 persons and injuring over 20. Another new tactic was seen in mid-July when a Pakistani Army lieutenant colonel was kidnapped by the BLA's Special Tactical Operations Squad while on a holiday trip in the hill station of Ziyarat in Balochistan. After this kidnapping, the Pakistani Army launched the operation to rescue their senior officer. But the military could not release its kidnapped officer before he was killed. Shockingly, an unprecedented claim in the first week of August was made by the spokesperson of Baloch Raji Arjoy Sangar, BRAS, an umbrella group of 4 separatist Baloch groups, claiming to shoot down a Pakistani military chopper in Balochistan's Lasbala district. Pakistan Army Media Wing Inter-Services Public Relations (ISPR) quickly rejected this claim and termed it as false propaganda. But, again in the month of September, a helicopter belonging to Pakistan Army Aviation Corps crashed near Balochistan's Hanai district. Baloch Liberation Army (BLA) claimed that its cadres had shot down the helicopter while it was on a rescue mission. The army confirmed the downing of the chopper but didn't give any specific reason for the crash. The claims of the Baloch militants can't be verified, but there is a high possibility that they now possess some form of anti-aircraft capabilities. After the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year, large quantities of highly sophisticated weapons which were used by Afghan security forces have made their way to the region's black markets. Many of these U.S.-made weapons have ended up in the hands of Baloch armed groups as well, like M16A2 and M16A4 assault rifles, Trigicon ACOG optics, and M203 underbarrel grenade launchers. In addition to small firearms and RPG-7 pattern rocket launchers, Baloch insurgents are using various machine guns like PKM and MG3 variants. Sometimes insurgents have also been spotted using some heavy machine guns, HMG. Baloch armed groups have gradually moved towards consolidation of what was previously a fragmented insurgency. Over the last few years, insurgent groups have either merged or have formed tactical alliances to put up a united fight against the Pakistani state. By doing this, they were able to have a better pool of resources and better coordination to carry out complex operations. Also, the leadership of the armed groups has shifted from tribal chiefs to the well-educated and highly motivated Baloch middle class. And these new ranks of Baloch insurgents are transforming the insurgency into guerrilla warfare. It's a hard truth that with time, the Baloch insurgents have adopted fighting tactics very much similar to Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, TTP. Pakistan policymakers have to understand that Baloch armed conflict can't just be dealt with by military means. Balochistan requires a political solution that can only be achieved through talks. Currently, if the Pakistani state is willing to talk and negotiate with the Pakistani Taliban, TTP, then why not follow this approach with Baloch armed groups as well? Until Islamabad meets some of the demands of the Baloch freedom fighters movement, the insurgency will continue to grow for sure.